I teach special education K through 5 at Bevins Elementary, and I teach mostly English language arts. The reason why I don't know where, let me stand over here. So the reason why I started this grant, I had a problem, obviously, that students are lacking the necessary foundational skills to be successful and fluent readers. At the end of last year, 35% of the students in our school scored in the bottom 40th percentile on our reading map assessment. 70% of the students with disabilities in K through 2 couldn't meet exit criteria. They couldn't recognize all their letters, their sounds, they couldn't write them, they couldn't read basic sight words. 67% of the students with disabilities in 3 through 5 were more than one grade level below, and they were non-readers, half of them. And reading is such an essential skill that all students need in order to be successful, and just because they had a disability doesn't mean that they couldn't do that. So my thoughts were, I needed something that could work with these kids, because what I was doing, I was trying all these research-based strategies. I was trying direct instruction, I was trying incremental rehearsal, time delay, nothing was working, on, and I needed something to work. So my question was, will Zoo Phonics, a multi-sensory language arts program, improve the foundational skills of students with disabilities? And the research shows that the program showed growth in learning their uppercase and lowercase letters, the shapes, the names, the sounds. It's a whole brain approach, and it pairs signals, sounds, letters together, and each letter has a key movement to help put that into their long-term memory. So students have 3 sets of mnemonics, and as you can see on the first slide, each letter is paired with an animal. And so like the animal is drawn into the letter shape. So it helps the kids remember the letters and the sounds. And each animal has an alliterative name with it. So like you've got alligator says ah. And then also a physical movement, so it has a body signal. And it helps connect the sound to long-term memory. The whole methodology of the program, our language is so confusing already, and it's so abstract. And so the animals kind of help. They're in the shape of the letter, so it helps the kids remember. They're taught the sounds before the name. If you think about it, we don't read with letter names, we read with letter sounds. And so when the kids have to remember the name and the sound, they hear 2 distinct different sounds. So not only is it confusing for students without disabilities, it was really confusing for my students with disabilities. And 95% of the material that we read is written in lowercase, so that's part of the reason why the kids learn the lowercase before uppercase. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, the body movement cues their memories to the phonemic information. And as research also shows that when your body moves, your brain remembers, and it also helps them kind of get their wiggles out. And the alphabet was taught as a whole. It wasn't, let's learn A and B today. It's A through Z. And then once they learned that, then they were taught the initial, the ending, and the medial sounds. So when I got the program in October, and I started right away. My goal was to use it daily in the resource room. I didn't get to implement it as consistently as I would have liked to with my first grade, but I did with my kindergartners. The program was taught through direct instruction. I had index cards. It was taught with songs and games. And you can see in these pictures, there's bingo with the animal letters and sounds on there. And then I also have another little girl up in the corner. She was using the stamps to work on word families and stamping the words out. You can turn Here's another one. Alligator says, ah, he's making the sounds there. There's their patterns. Missy Mouse, you can turn. Here's another one, the kids sounding it out. A board game. The board game also helped my kids with social skills. They taught turn taking, which another thing, a lot of the skill that a lot of my kids needed. And then also the program came with fonts, so I could make my own index cards for the kids. And go ahead. There's just another one. And here's my data. My goal at the beginning of this was for 95% of my students to show growth in their foundational reading skills. 100% of my students actually showed growth. And keep in mind that the program, it started in October, and they already had 3 months of instruction in the regular ed classroom, plus they already had specially designed instruction in the resource room at this time. If you look at student 1, go back to the other, sorry. If you look at student 1, they were only able to produce less than 5 sounds in the beginning. Student 2 and 3 couldn't produce any. I didn't start with student 3 until after October, so I didn't start with him until December. And then student 6 was he was actually in first grade, so he had 2 years of 2 years of Head Start, kindergarten, and then first grade, and still wasn't able to produce any sounds. Students 4 and 5, they were higher functioning, but they still showed growth. There's the same thing with the letter names as well. You can kind of see that on there. Skipping ahead, let me get with you here. Our sight words, this didn't show all of my kids, but as I had talked about before, student 4 was pretty unique. He kind of already knew all of his sounds coming in and his letters, but he could not he just could not grasp the sight words. And at my school, we used the Dr. Fry's 100 sight word list. And so if you look, the light blue, that was the random word list from August to February. And I worked with him in the resource room. He had the instruction in the classroom as well. And he had less than 6 words out of the 100. And I think they were already past 50 at that time. When I started using the animal cue cards with him, he was able to know past almost close to 20 words, and that was just from February to March, less than a month. So I thought he had a lot of success as well. How would I refine it? I really enjoyed this program, but because I didn't get it until October, I kind of had to adapt it to make it work and fit with me. So next year I'm going to start day 1. I would love to get more people on board. I'd love to get the kindergarten teachers on board and things like that too, so the kids are hearing the letters and sounds from me, and then they're going to also hear it in the classroom. And then I know now in kindergarten, I think the teacher, I forget what letter it is, but she uses a totally different animal name than I do, so it kind of confuses the kids a little bit. And I think that if they could hear it, all day long, through more than one mode, that they'd have even more success.